Hey guys, YouTube Minute here. All right, now here I am with another Phase 4 MCU review. And next up, here is my review for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So this movie was just released a few months ago in September. And yeah, on overall, I did think that this was a pretty good movie. Yeah, yeah. Critics and audiences really did like go nuts over this movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, like this movie has a score of 91% on the tomato meter and an audience score of 98%. So I think that this has the highest audience score of all the Marvel films, even a higher audience score than Avengers Endgame. So yeah, so people really did think very fondly of this movie when it came out. Yeah, me personally, I thought it was good. Yeah, I don't know if I would really go so far to say that this is really like in like the top five or top 10 best MCU films, but yeah, overall, I did still enjoy the movie. Yeah, so this film is really like the start of like how they're now introducing like new characters into the MCU now. Just like for this new generation of Marvel films, they're now introducing some new characters, and it starts here with Shang Chi, and yeah. And I did think that for like an introduction story for Shang Chi, this was a pretty good film. To like have the introduction story for Shang Chi. Yeah. So, yeah, prior to this film, I really didn't know anything about Shang-Chi. I didn't even, like, know Shang-Chi even existed. I never even heard of Shang-Chi until this movie was announced. So, yeah, this is another case where, like, it's where Marvel has, like, now including, like, some of the characters that really aren't as well known in these films. Yeah, it really is kind of like similar to the Guardians of the Galaxy. How like prior to the first film, like the Guardians of the Galaxy really weren't like really as well known as a lot of other Marvel characters, and there were like a lot of people that didn't even really know anything about the Guardians of the Galaxy until the first one came out. And yeah, and that's kind of like a case here too, where Shang-Chi is really not really as well known as a lot of other Marvel characters. But yeah, with this movie, like they really did do a good job of like giving Shang-Chi like introducing him in the films. Yeah, and I did think that overall this was a pretty good movie. Yeah, so yeah, so I'm not- I'm really not sure like what what sort of connection this movie will have with like future titles because the mid credit scene of this film did show that like we will be like in store for some more stuff with Shang Chi later on in the MCU. But yeah, I'm not really sure like what events will pick up from this film and how much of Shang Chi will we really will see after the film. But yeah, I did think that overall it was pretty good. Yeah, so this film really doesn't have like any sort of connection with like any previous MCU films. Like it has no like any sort of connection into like any of the previous films. Like this film really is just like on its own, and it really does like just start the story arc for Shang Chi and just really introduce him and just the other characters in the film into the MCU. And I do think that overall it was this was a pretty good film. Yeah, like I said, I'm not really sure if I really would like say that this really is like one of the best Marvel films, but I still overall I enjoyed it. Yeah, so yeah, so the movie really does feature pretty much like an all Asian cast in this film. So I'm really not gonna try to pronounce the any of the cast names in this film because I'll probably really like butcher them and just like say them so wrong. So yeah, I'm not really gonna mention any of the cast members' names in the film, but yeah, I do think that they all do a pretty good job. Like, yeah, the actor playing Shang Chi, I do think is pretty good and uh, good, and yeah, and also you have like the guy that is playing like his father, who's kind of like sort of an antagonist, but also like not an antagonist. His Wenwu, yeah, I do think that he does pretty good. Yeah, and pretty much all the supporting cast I do think do like well enough in the film. So yeah, this is a well acted movie. Yeah, the story is probably like something that people have, I'm sure, has been used before. Like what it's really about is like it dates back to like a very long time ago, like 1,000 years prior to when this film is actually set, and how the father ended up like getting powers, and he ended up like falling in love of, and they had children. But then the wife ended up getting killed later on. But then the father then the, in this film he does think that she is still alive and she's just being held captive in a village. But yeah, the village and even the son, Shang-Chi himself, is really trying to convince the father that like the mother is not held captive and she's dead, but the father doesn't believe them. So yeah, so he ends up fighting in the villagers and even Shang-Chi himself to try to free his wife and all this stuff. But of course, his wife isn't there. So yeah, so it's just a case of one person believes something that isn't true. The people really do start to try to explain to him that it's not, but he doesn't believe him, and he really just is set on really just trying to fulfill his objective and not listen to anybody. So it really is not a very original story. Yeah, it is a story that we have heard. We have heard stories like this before, where a person believes something, and other people try to convince him that it's not true, but he doesn't believe it, and he really does think that he's right, and he just really just try to fulfill. I've seen this done before in some other films and TV shows and stuff. So yeah, so it has been used before, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad because yeah, the story is still told pretty good. Yeah, and I really do like the characters. Yeah, the characters are still very interesting in this interesting, and yeah, and what goes on is interesting. So yeah, so at least it keeps you interested, and it's not just boring to watch this story be done when we have seen it before. Yeah. Yeah, and this movie does have some pretty good fight scenes in it. It can get kind of very anime esque sometimes, especially when these you see these Asian actors fighting especially when Shang Chi is fighting on the bus, the bus fight. That does kind of seem like something you'd see in an anime or a Japanese movie or something. So yeah, it does kind of have that kind of a Dragon Ball Z style kind of fighting where it's really fast and everything. Yeah. So yeah, the fight choreography is kind of hit and miss, but yeah, the scenes themselves, just seeing them fight, especially the fights with Shang Chi and Wen Wu, who towards the end of the film, yeah, that's done very well. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, yeah, just the fight between the Ten Rings forces and the villagers. Yeah, just that battle scene. Yeah, it is done very well. So yeah, so some really good fight scenes in the movie as well. So yeah, so the oh, I really can't really just say that this film really doesn't have anything to offer. It really is still really cool to see all these fight scenes, even though the choreography can be kind of hit and miss. Yes, yeah, and the story is done very well. The acting is very well. So yeah, just what can I really say? Just this film, it is really good. I mean, I don't really think that it is as the big like just the big phenomenal film that the critics and audiences are seeming to pass it off as how it's being passed off on tomatoes. I really don't think it really is that great, but yeah, it is still a really good movie. So I think I would probably give the film probably around I guess I would give it a 3.5 stars out of 4, maybe 3.75 stars out of 4. I don't know. I mean, I I really am kind of a crossroads on really what I would really give the film. You'll see my final rating down in the description, but yeah, as of right now, as I'm recording this, I'm kind of in a crossroads on what I would really give it. But yeah, I do think that it is a really good film and definitely worth a watch. But yeah, so of the three Marvel films that have come out this year because of course No Way Home has not come out yet. So of the three films that have come out so far this year, I'd probably say that this is probably the best. Of course, that could change when No Way Home just come out in a couple of weeks. But yeah, as of right now, yeah, I do think that this is the best one. All right. So yeah, so I don't really know what else I can really say. Just yeah, it's a very good and entertaining film, and it is worth a watch. All right, so I guess I'll just talk about the premise of the film. Yeah. So yeah, the film opens up about 1,000 years prior to when the movie's set. Yeah, and it talks about how Zhu Wen Wu, Yeah, I think I'm saying that right. Yeah, like I said, like these are all like kind of like Asian names, so I don't really know like how well I'm actually pronouncing them. But yeah, he ends up like discovering like 10 mystical rings, which end up like granting him immortality and godly powers, and yeah, and it just shows what like how powerful he really is. Like he like wears the rings on like his forearms, and yeah, and they give him like really like enhanced strength and all this stuff, and he's able to kind of like create like weapons with the rings and everything. Yeah, yeah, and then he like ends up establishing like his own organization, which is known as the Ten Rings, and then yeah, and they end up like conquering kingdoms and toppling governments throughout history. Yeah, then and in 1996, as a Wenwu was like searching for the village that's known as a Talo or Talo, is that how it's said? Yeah, yeah, and like Talo like is like said to actually harbor mythical beasts, and he ends up like traveling and through a magical forest, but he ends up being stopped by Ying Li, who's the guardian of the village. But yeah, they end up falling in love after a fight, and then after like Winwu was rejected by the villagers of Talo, then Li then just chose to leave with him. Yeah, and then they ended up marrying, and then they had two children, which were Shang-Chi and Xialing. Is that how it's said? Yeah. Yeah, and when Wu ended up just abandoning the Ten Rings Hing's organization and just locked the rings away. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then and throughout the film, it kind of like gives us kind of like more like it does like fill us in more on like well what happened with like Shang Chi and Lee and just like the family growing up because yeah when Shang Chi like was 7 years old, Lee ended up being like murdered by Wenwu's enemies known as the Iron Gang, and then he ends up donning the Ten Rings and massacred the Iron Gang, and then like just resumed the leadership of the Ten Rings organization. Then he just like put Shang-Chi through a bunch of brutal training in martial arts, but he didn't allow Xialing to train with the others. So yeah, she just ended up like secretly teaching herself all the martial arts, and then Shang-Chi eventually ended up being sent to assassinate the leader of the Iron Gang when he was 14 years old. And then when he completed it, then Shang-Chi was just like absolutely traumatized by what happened. And then he ended up running away to San Francisco and just like gave himself the name Sean. Yeah. Yeah, and then like in the present day of this film, it showed that Shang Chi was now a parking valet with his best friend Katie, who doesn't actually know who he really is. Yeah, he just has kept like his like true identity a secret from Katie and just tried to like live a normal life. Yeah, yeah. But then as they were on a bus, then some uh, some members of the Ten Rings forces tried to attack them, but yeah, yeah, Shang Chi then was just fought them off. But yeah, the Ten Rings ended up stealing a pendant that Shang Chi was actually given by Lee. Yeah, yeah, and then like when Shang Chi then like realized what was going on, he then like revealed who he was to Katie, and then yeah, then they flew out to meet with Xia with Xialing. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, because yeah, Shang Chi like had the fear that the Ten Rings would now end up going after her pendant as well. So then and yeah, then when Katie like found out about like what was really going on and who Shang Chi really was, she then like was very insistent on just helping them. Yeah, Yeah, and then they eventually then did find a Xiling in an underground fight club in Maku. Is that how it said? Macau? Yeah, yeah, yeah. But then eventually, then the Ten Rings ended up attacking the fight club, and then yeah, then yeah, they ended up capturing Shang-Chi, Katie, and Xiling, and then Wen Wu then arrived, and then he was like first like just reuniting with like Shang-Chi and Xiling, and then they eventually took them back to the compound of the Ten Rings. Yeah, and then then Wen Wu then used the two pendants to then like reveal a mystical map, which actually led to Talo. Oh yeah, then yeah, because uh Wen Wu was just like hearing like Lee calling to him, and then he then just like came to the conclusion that Lee was actually held in was being held captive in a sealed gate in Talo. So then he had the plans to destroy the village unless they would release her. Yeah, but and when he like told them, Shang Chi, Katie, and Zayling about his plans, then they just objected to it. So he just wound up imprisoning them so they wouldn't interfere. Yeah, and then here they then ended up meeting Trevor Slattery. So yeah, this was like of course Slattery from Iron Man 3, and yeah, and Ben Kingsley did reprise his role here. So that was a kind of a neat thing they did. They ended up bringing back heck Slattery from Iron Man 3. Yeah, yeah, and then yeah, told that like he also had like his handhund companion Morris, and then he ended up guiding them to a Talo to stop Wenwu. Yeah, yeah, and then they eventually then arrived in a Talo, and then at first like the villagers like were like forbidding them from entering the village, but then uh, Lee's sister Ying Nan and it was there, and then she like welcomed them into Talo, and then yeah, then she just like explained that like the village was actually attacked like thousands of years ago by uh, uh the dweller in darkness demon that ends up that consumes souls along with its minions. Yeah, but the Chinese dragon ended up saving the village, and yeah, the Chinese dragon was known as the Great Protector, and ended up sealing the Dark Gate to the Dweller's world. Yeah, 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 and yeah, Nan also explained that the Dweller in Darkness was is the one that is influencing Wenwu to believe that Li is alive to open the gate. Yeah, and so then Shang Chi, Xiling, and Katie then just were training along with the villagers to prepare for Wenwu's arrival, and they even gave them like weapons and outfits that were crafted from dragon scales. Yeah, yeah. And then eventually, Wenwu and his Ten Rings forces then arrived, and uh, yeah, Shang-Chi was just like trying to explain to his father that like their mother is not locked up and she really is dead, but of course like Wenwu didn't believe him. So then yeah, the Ten Rings forces and the villagers ended up battling one another. Yeah, there was just like yeah, they just ended up like fighting each other. Yeah, and then if it then Shang Chi and Wenwu then fought, and yeah, at first like Wenwu was like had a huge advantage over Shang Chi, like just the rings like just made him like so powerful, and he just like was very easily overpowering Shang Chi, and he eventually ended up just not blasting a Shang Chi into a lake. And then he was eventually able to make it to the gate, and then he tried to bust the gate. But then, as he was doing it, then the dwellers' minions were able to escape. And when the villagers in the Ten Rings and saw like what the minions consuming the souls, then they then ended up joining forces to fight the minions. Yeah, but then yeah, and then it showed the Great Protector then revived Shang-Chi here as the Great Protector emerged from the water to help battle the minions, and then yeah, then Shang-Chi and Wenwu then continued to fight with each other. Yeah, this time Shang-Chi was able to gain the upper hand on Wenwu, and he even gained control of the rings during the fight, and was able to actually fight off any ring attacks that Wenwu was attempting to throw at him. Yeah, yeah. But then, yeah, when it looked like Shang-Chi was then victorious and he may have had the opportunity to destroy Wenwu, he decided to spare Wenwu's life. But then the Dweller in Darkness then escaped from the gate, and then went after Shang-Chi. But then Wenwu then used the rings to save Shang-Chi. Then as the Dweller then attacked Wenwu then just bequithered the rings to Shang-Chi and had him be the one who controlled the rings now before Wenwu ended up being killed by the Dweller. Yeah. And then Shang-Chi, the Great Protector, Xiling, and Katie then had a fight with the Dweller, and then they eventually ended up defeating the Dweller. Yeah. And then, yeah, then yeah, then now with the Dweller defeated, the villagers, the Ten Ring forces, along with Katie, Xiling, Shang-Chi, and Nan, they all celebrated, and then Shang-Chi and Katie then returned back to San Francisco, and then as they were then just talking with their friends about everything they had been through, then Wong appeared, and then just summoned Shang-Chi and Katie to the Camertage. And then, yeah, and that's how the film ended. Well, yeah, that's when the film then cut to credits. But then, yeah, then during the mid-credit scene, then it showed what he had summoned them for. It showed how Wong was talking with Bruce Banner and Captain Marvel to research the origin of the rings after they were questioning Shang-Chi on how long his father had them for. And then they eventually ended up discovering that the rings are actually acting as a beacon to something. Yeah, though, yeah, it didn't reveal what, but Wong just told them to prepare for the biggest adventure of their lives. So this is obviously building up to something in the future. I don't really know what. I mean, is this something where they're starting to build up the appearance of Galactus or something? So we don't. We don't know yet exactly what it is that this is a beacon towards, or what this is really leading up to. But yeah, we're just gonna need to wait and see for what the future movies may give us, and if the other movie, any future movies will hit more to whatever this does mean. Yeah, yeah, and then yeah, then then after the credits and the post-credit scene, then it showed how Xiling was now the leader of the Ten Rings and was now training men and women and to fight, even though she actually did tell Shang-Chi that she was going to disband the organization. Yeah, and then and then it just read the Ten Rings will return. So of course, now we'll be getting some sort of Shang-Chi sequel sometime in the future. Don't know when, but yeah, we will have a sequel somewhere down the road. Yeah, but so that's how the film ended. All right. So overall, yeah, I do think this is a pretty good film. I don't really think that it is just the big game changer that like a lot of people are kind of saying that it is. So yeah, I don't really think it's that great, but yeah, it is still a really good movie. Yeah, so so I do think that this was a nice way to introduce like start the trend of like introducing new characters into the MCU now for this next generation of the films. So yeah, so I do, like I said, I do think that this is so far the best of the three that have come out this year so far. Though, yeah, of course, like No Way Home could change that in a couple of weeks, but as of right now, yeah, I do think that this is so far the best one. So yeah. So yeah, it's a good way to introduce like a new character. It has some good fight scenes, good acting. So yeah. So overall, I do think that this is a very solid film. So yeah, I definitely do think that it is worth a watch. So yeah, so like I said, I would probably give it like a 3.5 or 3.75 stars out of 4. All right, so yeah, so I guess this is all I can really say about it. All right, so this is it from our review of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. So I hope you guys did enjoy this review. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys later.